Hey guys, y'all bless everyone. Happy Passover too. I told you that I was going to share with you a video that would blow your mind. It blew my mind. And the basis of what I'm making in this video is the climate lie. But you'll see what I'm going to do. I'm in so much pain, guys. It's like, wow. It's just so hard to deal with, man. It really is. Like, you just got to keep icing. Just brutal. So in this video, please say prayers. Please continue to say prayers for that for me, because I believe they do. The last time it really did work for me. Excuse me. So, yeah, you see the flooding happening. Like we're not into summer at all, and there's these massive floods filling Isaiah 60. Which is it? Is it 45? Anyways, it's the one about the desert will be a pool in the wilderness and that type of stuff. And you can actually see Saudi Arabia or the UAE, I forget. I think it's Saudi Arabia on a satellite image, and you can see it's like turning green. The desert part of it, a lot of it. I think it says in that prophecy it'd be like a lush green something or other. So you're gonna see a machine in this that's gonna blow your mind. I had no idea it existed, and this is the reason I'm playing this. And then after this video, I'm gonna show you another one, and guys, okay, listen to what I'm gonna say before I play this. I forget how I structured this. I wrote this down. I don't want to go and look though. Imagine just for a second, you may be like, oh, I don't think so. I know so. I believe that they can make earthquakes through megasonic waves. We know that the program HARP, like I said in another video, they made the monsoons last months longer in the Vietnam War weapons, so they could turn the whole Ho Chi Minh Trail into mud and landslides and all that type of stuff. So they couldn't bring tanks, so they couldn't bring armored personnel carriers across, and the North Vietnamese were very persistent, let's just say, but it really hampered their efforts. Can you imagine what's happened since that 50 years? They have stuff that you can't even imagine. So all these floods you're seeing, probably a lot of our hurricanes, a lot of everything is due to cloud seeding and weather manipulation of high altitudes and ionosphere control. So this isn't a what they'll call you a fact check conspiracy theory. These things are on videos. And with what I show you next, you're going to be like, okay, well, that was 20 years ago. This is going to blow your mind, but it's going to go through a bit of this first. Oh, I know what I was going to say. You know how it says, I think it's in Romans 1. I'm in a lot of pain, so I can't think clearly. Where it says, where they shall believe the lie. In another place, God will send and choose their delusions. Well, what if part of that anyways was the climate lie? It appears to me that they're pushing, like they'll say anything is climate change, literally. They'll say anything is climate change, anything. Remember when that eclipse happened? Someone said it was due to climate change. I believe that was on The View. But can you picture this? Just picture this for a second. We saw what COVID did, right? We saw what that did. Now I'm going to have COVID under my video. Can you imagine that the next thing they're going to push on us is this? This has already damaged our society beyond control. It's pushed up by the higher up elites. Electric cars, all this. Like, I don't believe in climate change. I do believe we can change it a bit, but we can have massive fires like the Canadian one, which puts out way more than the whole Earth does probably in 50 years, and nothing happens. In fact, more CO2 causes more green. So there's nothing wrong with the gas cars. It probably affects it so little, but there's a lie going around, and it's the green lie. So if they know how to control the weather, which they do, can you imagine that they come out with something like a climate law, which we kind of see a bit of that happening, you know, with the climate 10 commandments. Imagine they control the weather so much and they make the weather go so insane on purpose. The fires, I showed you the lasers, I showed you, go look up Dutch sins, Quebec fires, and you're going to see 50 to 100 simultaneous fires starting, all on a clear sky day. Dutch sins was like, what? I think you should be like, what? But it doesn't get looked at. I know I'm saying a lot here and you just probably want to see this, but this is important. Can you picture that they start bringing in laws about the climate? They tell us we have to repent, right? Like they already have been, but like, can you picture them doing it en masse? And they make the weather go so horrific, they start repenting, and because they control it, they stop and they say, see? And then all of a sudden they draw us in. I can picture something like that happening. I wouldn't put it past them. Or something in that. Something like that, but much more intricate than what I can say. If you want to see a video, and I'm not saying it's proven or anything, about a guy who said he worked in Antarctica, and he was like a plumber, and I ask you to look up the Sean Ryan show. It's got about 2 million subscribers or something like that. And what would you look up? Sean Ryan, man-made earthquakes. See what comes up. I forget the man's name, but he's gone mainstream telling this story. He said that the Christchurch was done by mistake. The earthquake that happened there was caused by their stations on Antarctica. So the Antarctic, I don't know. I can't say, but I think the issue with some people is that they're not willing to open their mind to understand that they can do this kind of stuff. And I'm going to show you something very cool, so let's watch.
Oh my Lord. Oh my Lord.
Why are planes even moving?
Dubai is underwater, and it's all happening because they allegedly decided to make it rain, but now it just won't stop. They do this thing called cloud seeding, which is basically manipulating clouds to enhance rainfall in dry climates. But as a result, the entire city has become underwater with massive storms flooding malls and residential buildings. Literally, airplanes can't take off anymore, and some are even comparing the rainstorms to the apocalypse.
Dubai's severe flooding was caused by excessive use of cloud seeding for 7 days straight. This led to them receiving 1 year's worth of rain in less than 24 hours. In this desert country, planes couldn't land or take off from the airport because the entire runway was completely flooded. and the streets and drainage systems were inundated with water. People were stuck in their Rolls-Royces, Teslas, and Bugattis. Chairs and tables were being flung from top-floor balconies of high-rise buildings. The famous mall in Dubai was gushing water like a tropical waterfall, reminiscent of rivers in Indonesia or the Philippines. The skies were so dark, it was like a repeat of the major solar event from last week.
Australia are creating man-made clouds to cool the ocean.
Yeah.
Take a look.
There's 2 whole shipping containers with big air compressors in them to generate the compressed air to blast the plume. And so what we see is that the plume actually gets sucked right up into the clouds.
Oh, wow.
We don't have
Well,
to
that's
do
good, right?
anything. Yeah, it's terrific. It makes life a lot easier. And in fact, it means we're able to revise a lot of our sort of calculations as to how many stations we need and how efficient it would be. Per second, one of those machines, we've got 2 now, but for one, it produces about 1,000 billion droplets a second from about a shot glass of water a second, 30 mils.
One of the things I saw that would be a sign of wonder and even a difficulty is that if he goes in, I saw like weather manipulation happening. And you say, what are you talking about? Can they manipulate the weather? Now, many of you are already commenting, yes, HAARP, things, they seed clouds. Well, here's the other thing. They actually have shown this stuff to the public without saying that's what they're doing. You know that, right? Like they've shown this stuff on TV programs. They've shown this stuff on different platforms and even shows in the past where they say, oh my goodness, look, here's a cloud, it's going in the sky, and then suddenly it rains and all. You recognize they can do this. And if they can show it passively about something that's not fully related to this, I'm telling you, they got the tech to do some pretty crazy stuff. As a matter of fact, let's show that clip from a TV show called Top Gear. Elijah, we have that, right? The clip from Top Gear where they're talking about NASA and the way they put clouds out in jet propulsion, but it turns into a cloud, manifests into a cloud in the sky that another state he jokes about will be able to see or experience rain out of, and then something crazy happens in this clip. Let's take a look at this. Weather manipulation, here we go. Okay, this is...
Don't worry
Stop
if you
it right
can't
here.
hear what I'm saying.
Okay, I want to talk about this for a second. So what's happening is this is a NASA rocket program and all this, and I don't have all the deep insights to it, but here's the point. They're blasting out this jet propulsion, and it's like, what is it? It's like H2O they're blasting in the air, some kind of, combination of elements. They're blasting it into the air, and you're seeing it's like hydrogen, oxygen, all that. They're just blasting it into the air, and here's what's happening. It's vaporizing, but notice he's got these earphones on, that it's so loud. He says it's the loudest thing he's ever heard, basically, but it's creating something. Now, if you'll pay attention, you're going to begin to see what it creates. Now, it's louder than he can even explain. This is from Top Gear, but notice where this goes. Just pay attention to it.
I couldn't even hear myself. This is the loudest sound you could possibly conceive. And
Look at
as
that.
it turns out,
Look at that.
the cleanest.
Does that look familiar?
Now, the most amazing thing is that cloud up there, which was generated by the air.
That cloud, he's calling it, that's a cloud in the sky. Does that look like anything other than a cloud? Does it look man-made? The answer is no, it doesn't. It looks like any cloud you would see. Now, if he can do this on a program and they show you this on television, and this is probably 20 years old, if they show it to you here, what else can they do? Now watch what happens next.
It's just a mixture of hydrogen and oxygen. It's water vapor. And in about an hour's time, someone in Mississippi is going to get wet washing. It will actually rain.
Look what happens.
Wow.
I told you. Yeah, it's raining.
They made it rain.
That's unbelievable. Here. This is playing God. It's making its own weather.
That's exactly
So, okay,
what they're
let's
doing.
come back. I want to look right at you. Now, here's what we recognize. What did we just...
I just had to interrupt. That's why I was smiling a second ago. I didn't realize that George St. Pierre did Christian videos. If you're not laughing, then you probably don't know what I mean. He looks like George St. Pierre. Is that not insane? I just heard something back there, but is that not insane? That's playing God. He said it was 20 years ago. That was the show Top Gear. I said that in another video today. I made 4 videos today, but it's that show where they used to drive around all Europe and in really expensive cars. There was like 3 of them. But they're playing God. If that was 20 years ago, can you imagine? We have no idea what they can do. And what's going to happen is, I wonder if part of Revelation and prophecies in the Old and maybe even New Testaments are maybe even speaking about things that are going to backfire from this type of thing. Who knows? But you could see how things are. Like, look what they're doing. That was a huge machine, by the way, powered by a rocket. So let's continue here. I don't know how much more he has to say on this.
Just witness. Well, we witnessed kind of an off-the-cuff, major technological marvel of how they do things with NASA, jet propulsion, all that. But it created a cloud right on TV for us. And people are like, can they really do these kind of things? They just did it. They did it.
Comment
now,
if you've ever
what
seen
they
that
could do
before.
Unfettered. Imagine what they do with all their technology.
Why don't they show us
Imagine
that?
what they could do if they really wanted to create something. If they can do that, they can do things that are probably beyond our comprehension, involving weather, maybe even hurricanes. Maybe they can stir stuff up. And they've talked about this stuff since the Vietnam War. This stuff is out there. Now, I have an inkling, an unction, and my sense is this, that there will come a time that should the former leader get in, that we will see this type of narrative all over, especially in this nation. Now, I believe it involves seashore, the shorelines. I believe it involves intense weather. I believe it involves cells and supercells and things that are breaking loose at an unprecedented level. And this is their mechanism for blaming change. That wicked tree-hugging religion where they worship creation like Romans forbids. They worship creation rather than the creator. The point is when we're looking at this mess that's happening, there is an agenda behind it, and the mechanism is now you're seeing them spraying things out into the atmosphere or in space, so to speak, so they can block sunlight. Now they're going to begin to manipulate weather. They want to begin to do all this stuff so they can induce the very stuff they're lying to us about.
That's right. So that's what I was saying. Can you imagine what they can do with that? They can force upon us. Look, if they can control us through COVID, they can control us through weather, and they may have their finger on the trigger and be able to control us in a second, just by proving to us that, what these people have said to us is correct. So we have to follow them. Next thing you know, we're stuck indoors. We have to do that type of thing. You hear the Seventh-day Adventists saying that, the Catholic Church is going to come back and say, we need, to worship on Sundays. Save our planet, right? Worship on Sundays. And no matter which way I don't know if that's going to be it, but no matter which way you look, you can keep proving them wrong. And they just keep taking all these angles that can be disproven. But like I said, once they have something like this in their hand, they can do whatever they want. I believe the United States has so much power you can't even think. People think it's not in Bible prophecy. I do. I believe that they are, like I said, no one thought they were going to fight for Israel. Can you imagine how many years of $1 trillion a year military spending What kind of programs do you think they were doing? Like, no one even came close for a long, long time. They have weapons you can't even imagine. And yes, they can hide them. People think the thing is never stay hidden. Believe me, they can do that if they want. They kept the stealth under wraps. Skunk Works. If they can do that, they can keep a major weapon under wraps. And people may speak about things, but it doesn't mean they'll just call it conspiracy theory. So.
And a lot of people today are like, we just really got to go with the flow and protect the environment. I got a news for you. It says in 1 Peter that the elements will one day burn with fervent heat. It will melt. The earth is going to melt with fervent heat, not by these twisted people that are walking around saying, oh, it's going to happen. Oh, we got climate change. Climate change is an existential threat to our way of life and all that. Yeah, because of you, because of your mindset with it. That's not the truth. The bottom line is when we're looking at what's going on, we realize they are manipulating things and then matching that manipulation to a narrative that creates the lemming think, the group think of the culture to say, oh my goodness, that's exactly what's happening. And now, as we said before, suddenly you got all kinds of crazy stuff going on. You got people thinking they're a turtle. The next thing you know, you got cats and dogs living together. What is happening in the world? And the world's going to chaos. And the church goes, well, nothing to see here. We need to really begin to recognize what's coming. Now, I believe that's coming. It can be revealed, absolutely exposed, and turned through prayer. These are some of the things that I'm noticing.
Okay, let's move to the next thing. This, well, you'll see. Happy Passover, by the way, guys. Again, I spread my blood, all over my door. Isn't that what you're supposed to do? Just kidding. I think you'll find this interesting. The title, as you can see, they're exposing Greta Thunberg's true face that you're not supposed to see. This is part of this climate lie, and it'll get you. This is just a guy doing, he's trying to be funny. He's trying to also dissect. He's very good at dissecting what's really going on in this climate lie, in this narrative that they're pushing on us that really no one wants anything to do with. Take a look at how it's transformed our world. Look at what it's done. Like, you just walk out your door and you can see a lot of different stuff that's changed. I know I can here. There's nothing wrong with wanting to take care of the planet. Pick up the garbage, like, do the stuff you're supposed to do. Recycle, do that kind of stuff. They don't have to make certain things like too much plastic, because that does go into the ocean, a lot of it. But anyways, it's not the way. Most of it's a lie. So let's check this out and see what he says.
Perhaps playing a role helps you sleep at night. Pretending. This is communication tactics. Playing a role.
How dare you?
Blah, 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 blah. Ignoring the crucial aspect of equity. Playing a role, pretending. The show is over.
We've heard from leaders about their goals and their aims. I'd like to now come to an activist who has sparked a worldwide change in consciousness.
Activist is quite the go-to word nowadays to excuse people's behavior. In the media, linguistic choices are made all the time. These choices affect our understanding of a given issue, a perception of a given person, whether we perceive a person as good or bad. If a person's called an activist enough times, people start assuming that he or she is one of the good guys, and a positive discourse is created about said person. In order to maintain the positive discourse, the host doesn't mention the resistance that Greta also faces, because we can't have anything negative spoil the mood.
She was with us here live at the Austrian World Summit. 2 years ago, she had a very stark message for us then, saying, we've done enough traveling, we've done enough talking, it is time to act. Greta Thunberg, thank you so much for being with us once again. What's your message for us this year?
An adjective like stark, presupposing that Greta's message was indeed stark, and
what's your message for us this year?
Emphasize that we as the audience are the passive, lucky recipients of whatever message she has for us. But that's the problem. People like Greta almost never engage in debates with anyone who opposes them. Monologues are their preferred or only form of communication. Monologues save them from having.
When you try to engage them in debate, I saw someone questioning. There is a video. They probably erased it because the whole internet supports her, because the internet is owned by places like Google, where someone actually was asking her questions and she wasn't able to back it up. That's what I saw happen. And so they're paid to say something. Who knows if they even, I'm sure they study it, but they're not real experts.
Having to ground their claims. Instead, they can use pathos and fear strategies as they please. And Greta wastes no time. She goes into speech mode immediately.
Thank you for having me. Tomorrow, 150 weeks will have passed since we started the school strike for the climate. And during this time, more and more people around the world have woken up to the climate and ecological crisis, putting more and more pressure on you, the people in power. Eventually, the public pressure was too much, and you had the world's eyes on you. So you started to act. Not acting as in taking climate action, but acting as in role-playing. Playing politics, playing with words, and playing with our future. Pretending to take responsibility, acting as saviors as you try to convince us that things are being taken care of. Meanwhile, the gap between your rhetorics and reality keeps growing wider and wider. This is communication tactics dressed as politics, disguised as politics.
That's some intro. Welcoming Greta to this summit comes at a cost. A key component of almost any positive discourse about a person or cause is oversimplification. Greta has an interest in creating an us and them discourse, even though, given the resistance she also faces, this we isn't as unanimous as she presupposes that it is.
More and more people, you had the world's eyes on you.
In a debate, you have to prove your claims. In a speech, not so much. The most central presupposition is the noun crisis. Thus, in order for the audience to feel like a part of Greta's collective we, they must first agree that there is a crisis. Unlike debates, where the opponent often challenges the speaker's presuppositions, speeches allow politicians and self-professed activists to use presuppositions as if they're simply referring to common knowledge. That's how terms like crisis become the hegemony, the winning discourse, when discussing a topic like this. Greta even presupposes it as reality.
The gap between your rhetorics and reality.
Therefore, it's a little ironic to hear Greta criticizing or pretending to criticize the people in power.
The people in power.
When her side already has the power, rhetorically speaking, but also politically speaking, considering the consequences that their ideas already have for consumers.
You can always have these big corporations.
So here she is, she's like speaking down, and she's really, it's so stupid because the people that she's speaking against are the people who are hosting her. This is the stupidity of this all. The elites, the WEF, these are the people who fly on jets. Greta flies on jets.
That put pressures on the consumers to make changes in their lives, spend a little bit more money on having like sustainable makeup wipes. You can always...
Yes, you can always do that. I mean, it's not like the prices on, say, gas and groceries are already high enough. If only people would just spend a little bit more money, so the politicians can keep spending their money for them.
Since we started the school strike for the climate.
How strange. I never would have thought that strike was school students' preferred way of showing their concern.
We're still seeing that today, people trying out different methods. And eventually I found something that worked for me, which was school strike.
We're thinking about the rest of the world in the future, so it really feels like it's for the bigger picture. She carries this sign, which is School Strike for Climate in Swedish.
Hey. Guess who's Employee of the Month again? Thank you, sir. Of course, you're the only employee, but the best nonetheless. Now, obviously, keeping that title isn't easy. We all have to make sacrifices in the crisis we're in. Which sacrifices, sir? Well, I think it's only fair that we take a small percentage of your salary to invest in a green future. Only 30 to 35%, I promise. 30 to 35%? You do want to keep your title, don't you? Yes, of course, sir. I just... Good, it's settled then. Let's have a good day today. Greta uses terms and phrases to describe bad behavior that the opposing side would accuse her of engaging in, so could her statements actually be projection?
Role-playing, playing with words, rhetorics, communication.
I'm going to stop here because this is so important. I'm going to back that up a second. I don't know how many of you have ever been taken by a narcissistic person. You know enough that you know what they do. So what they do is they accuse you of what they're doing. And isn't this what's happening in society with the elites? This is why Yahweh is going to reverse everything. He's going to come and everything's going to burn. As Peter says, with fervent heat, whatever that means, the elements will melt, and whatever is good will stay, and whatever isn't will burn. It's just it's so angering what they're trying to do. I mean, I don't try to let it get me, like it's just angering, right? So since I've said this, now watch the way that she's doing this. So it's the reverse. It's reversing projection, as he said.
Greta uses terms and phrases to describe bad behavior that the opposing side would accuse her of engaging in, so could her statements actually be projection?
Role-playing, playing with words, rhetorics, communication tactics.
I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
Role-playing, communication tactics.
There is no planet
That's what
B.
they're doing.
There
They're
is no
setting
planet
us up.
Blah, 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 blah. Build back better, blah, blah, blah. Green economy, blah, blah, blah.
Playing with words, acting as saviors.
Did you hear me? What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it?
Acting as saviors. And since the level of awareness is so low, you almost get away with it.
So the awareness is low, but apparently it's still high enough to put pressure on the people in power.
Isn't it just like you just want to... They're just little... They're kids. They're rotten kids who are getting away with everything. Their parents haven't told them what's good and what's bad, what happens to you when you get punished. Like they're getting away with everything. And I'm not saying that for young, I'm talking about young and old. It's disgusting. What else was there was something I was going to say about, maybe that'll come to mind again.
Putting more and more pressure on you, the people in power. So you started to act.
Still high enough to keep the only officially allowed narrative in Western societies going. I wonder why Greta and all the people behind Greta would have an interest in portraying the awareness as low. It wouldn't happen to be because they have a book they want to sell, would it?
I have spent the last 1 year and a half putting together a book in an attempt to communicate a holistic picture.
These crises are the biggest story in the world. It must be told in books and articles, in movies and songs, at breakfast tables, lunch meetings and family gatherings, in lifts, at bus stops and in rural shops, in schools, boardrooms and marketplaces, in the fields, in the warehouses and on the factory floors, at union meetings, political workshops and football games, in kindergartens and in old people's homes, in hospitals and at music festivals, on social media and the evening news, on dusty country roads and in the streets and alleys of our towns and cities, everywhere, all the time.
Everywhere, all the time, indeed. I don't think she forgot to mention a single place, unless you can't share it on clean country roads.
On dusty country roads.
That's how all objective and reliable narratives that welcome critical thinking are forced upon. Promoted to people.
Pretending to wage war against fossil fuels while opening up brand new coal mines, oil fields and pipelines.
This is called a synecdoche, a part of the problem.
Every place that she named, if you go back and listen to that, go back and listen to the... When I explain this, go back to the beginning of all the places that she names, and when you are going through them, keep in your mind, this is a communist agenda. Isn't this what you would hear in Soviet Russia? Because that's what I hear.
That's used to represent the whole. Here it's coal mines, oil fields and pipelines. Words that are part of the script that she has a habit of repeating.
The people in power cannot claim that they are trying, because they are clearly not, as they continue opening up brand new coal mines, oil fields and pipelines.
However, it doesn't necessarily follow, as she tries to make it seem, that just because there are coal mines, oil fields and pipelines, the people in power aren't trying. People's lives depend on these things, but monologues conveniently save the speaker from having to come up with detailed solutions on how to quite literally change the way the world works, from each and every country's economy to each individual family's way of life. Thus, synecdoches are part of the oversimplification tactic.
Pretending to have the most ambitious climate policies while granting new oil licenses, exploring future oil fields.
The oversimplification doesn't stop there.
Bragging about your so-called ambitious climate commitments, which, if you look holistically, are vastly insufficient, and then get caught not even trying to reach those targets.
And of course, Greta looks at things holistically, although it's strange that her rhetoric resembles the rhetoric of the people in power who act as saviors.
I saw this video, and it was a Christian YouTuber, and he likes to dig deep into things to see their predictive programming. And I think it was the Olympics. It could have been 2010, or it was like a London Games type thing. Anyways, it had a ceremony at the beginning, and keep in mind it was around 2010. I think it was no later than 2012. Okay, think of how young Greta Thunberg is still, and when she first came out, remember she was young, right? There were many, but there were, how they make those big giant costumes and they walk around, big bobbling heads type thing. So this was in London. This was the UK for sure. This was England. And two of them looked exactly like, holy, there were needles, or there were germs, people dressed up as germs. And not only that, but like green germs. There were nurses wearing masks, but there was one of those big costumes looked exactly like Greta Thunberg, but not only that, but there was also one of Boris Johnson. I saw it. It's all a lie. And they're telling us that they're telling us ahead of time. I don't know how many people have seen that. I couldn't find it again. I'm sure it is findable. This is all a narrative. Doesn't it make you mad? Like,
I wonder why she's so good at recognizing savior rhetoric when she does.
The other thing I wanted to say was this. You actually think China and India are going to be on board while they're making a coal factory every single day? I don't know what it is, 1,000 per year or more, new ones, while we're taking ours down. What a joke. Our climate isn't changing because of that, and it's unfortunate. How do you expect to do anything without them? And it doesn't matter. They can't switch anyways because their people are so poor. They need to burn wood and coal. It's very cost effective. And by the way, your generating stations for your electric cars are run by coal. I saw, I was watching not a parliamentary debate, but a congressional debate. And they were posing a question. They were literally trying to nail someone to get them right in a corner of climate change and electric cars. What will it cost to outfit the entire United States? Just the whatever it was, 1,000,000 kilometers of road, whatever it was a huge number. $17 trillion just to get that infrastructure in place, and that's just that part of it. Like, you know, the juice box things and I don't know how you're going to make power. And for some reason, they're against nuclear power, which is the cleanest of them all. There's always an excuse. There's an agenda.
Doesn't use that, because unlike the people in power, she isn't calculating at all. Because her rhetoric is centered on presuppositions, and because her discourse is the winning discourse, she apparently doesn't see a need to ground her claim about the climate commitments not being sufficient. If you look at things holistically, which is the intentionally vague modification she makes, intentionally because it saves her from giving grounds. That's how easy, much too easy, it is to give speeches as opposed to engage in debates.
Pretending to be a climate leader while locking in a future common agricultural policy that will make the Paris Agreement impossible to reach. Pretending that you will build back better after the pandemic, even though
the people who are claiming build back better are the people who are hosting her. Like all the leftists. How does that make sense? It doesn't.
Astronomical sums of money have already been locked in, and not in green projects, whatever green means.
This clip shows how synecdoches are used for two things: to give the audience the impression that things are out of control, and irresponsibility discourse, and presuppose that certain actions are mutually exclusive. For example, that you can't be a climate leader and have policies that'll supposedly make the Paris Agreement impossible to reach. It sounds an awful lot like Greta wants to be the only true leader. I don't know why that is though, because savior rhetoric is only for the people in power, right? Come to think of it, considering that she's so different from the people she criticizes, it's strange that she was invited to this summit in the first place. I'm sure if she had the opposite views, she'd still be invited, because every inclusive politician at this summit is interested in truly looking at things holistically. Wait.
And when your empty words are not enough, when the protests grow too loud, you respond by making the protests illegal.
That doesn't sound like a very holistic description of events. What a surprise. A protest made illegal because of the pressure from the collective we that she keeps presupposing the existence of, or because protesters are blocking roads, for example. But it's always more effective.
Don't forget that Greta Thunberg, and I'm going to stop here. I don't want to play too much more because I want to study really. When she was protesting for the Palestinians, she was one of the first people to put on the the bandana of Hamas. How horrible, man. How horrible. They forgot that atrocity. I feel sorry for the Jews, man. I'm sure you know my thoughts on that. It's not their fault. And they deserve absolutely to go to the very end to eliminate Hamas. I mean, They give back the hostages, and it will stop. That's what they've. But of course, this is all the doing of Iran. All they have to do is give back the hostages, and the war is over. But they're playing a PR war, just like in the Vietnam War, and the U.S. didn't really lose that war. They lost a PR war. So, and I do believe they're fighting against communism. And I mean, a lot of stuff the U.S. did wasn't good. But anyways, yeah, bless every single one of you.